Some wounds never bleed, but they break people silently. That was the very first line Dr. Eleanor, a psychologist, wrote in her journal after 36 years of working with the elderly. You won't see bruises on their skin, no cries for help, no visible tears. But if you sit quietly beside them, especially on those silent nights, you'll notice something in their eyes no longer shows. Something is tucked away behind weary smiles and stories told one too many times. It was a quiet autumn evening in Massachusetts. A gentle rain fell. Helen M79 sat by the wooden window where she always had her evening tea and read a few pages of an old book. The sheer curtain swayed gently in the wind. Outside, raindrops landed on yellow maple leaves scattered across the yard. But she wasn't reading. She wasn't sipping. She was staring into a hollow space within where a home used to be. Her husband had passed away 5 years ago from heart failure. Her son had moved to Chicago. Her youngest daughter rarely called, too busy with life. She didn't blame anyone, but her heart felt empty. An emptiness only those who've grown old truly understand. I used to think growing old meant rest, love, and being cared for, she once said. But it turns out it's just me. And memories no one wants to hear anymore. Why don't they want to hear them? I've asked that question over and over again while speaking with dozens of seniors from tiny rural towns to sprawling cities. And the answer always squeezes my heart. Because we're the past. The world has moved on without needing us. Some hide their pain in laughter. Some hide it behind bedroom doors no one opens. Others, they bury it between old photo albums, unsent letters, and fading memories. But the most painful truth is this: they don't dare speak up because they fear being seen as weak. Have you ever felt that way? Have you ever sat in the dark not because you couldn't sleep, but because you didn't know who to share your heart with? Have you ever smiled in front of your children and grandchildren only to turn away with tears already brimming? Have you ever heard a song, tasted a dish, or heard a phrase that brought the past flooding back and you didn't know what to do with it? If you're nodding right now, welcome. This video isn't about empty advice. It's not a prescription. It's not a promise. It's a companion, one that walks with you wound by wound. Not everyone carries all 7. But if you're feeling empty, disappointed, or waking up without a reason to rise, then chances are at least one of these wounds is living inside you. And the truth is, it can be healed. No pills, no complicated therapy session. Just one thing: you return to yourself. Today's story will tell what no one else dares to. It will speak from a real voice, from the heart. So you can come alive again, not just in memory, but in this very moment. Because you deserve to live a full, meaningful elderhood. And we believe you are never too old to begin healing the wound of being left behind when you're still alive, but no one needs you anymore. It's not death that hurts the most. It's being forgotten while you're still here. It's a silent, lingering pain, like a wound in the heart that never scabs over. One day you're someone everyone needs. The next, no one asks you a thing. Mr. Thomas, 82, lives in the suburbs of Denver, Colorado. He was once a construction engineer. Every morning he'd wake up early, brew his coffee, review blueprints, and head to the job site before sunrise. He managed hundreds of workers, signed million-dollar deals, and the city once called him the man of the steel bridge. Then he retired, then his wife passed, then his son moved to Texas. At first everything seemed fine. He had his own routine. He played chess with a few old friends. He joined a book club that met once a month. But then, the book club dissolved. His old friend passed away, and the last phone call from his son was 4 months ago. I still brew my coffee every morning, he said, but there's no one left to drink it with. He sits in front of an old landline phone. The light is still on, but it doesn't ring. One February afternoon, he went to the post office to send a birthday card to his granddaughter. The card was tucked neatly inside a light blue envelope. Inside, he wrote by hand, "I miss you so much. Do you still remember me?" The card was sent. No reply came back. You see, being left behind doesn't mean someone walked away from you. It means they're still alive, still living their lives, but they no longer remember that you are still here. No one asks, "Dad, how are you?" No one texts Mom, Have you eaten today? No one opens your door, puts a hand on your shoulder and says, Grandpa, I want to hear a story. Why are the elderly left behind? It's not because their children are bad. It's not because the world is cruel. It's because of something painfully real. The world moves too fast, and the elderly can't keep up. When you're no longer useful at work, when you don't know how to use a smartphone, when you forget appointments, talk slower, hear less, you become inconvenient, and slowly people begin to avoid you. No one says it out loud, but their eyes say everything. Ms. Mary, 71, was once the head nurse at a major hospital in Seattle. She was diagnosed with mild Parkinson's. She walks slowly. Her voice trembles. The last time she was invited to dinner was 2 years ago. Now on holidays, people just send her frozen meals through delivery services. No one comes inside. No one asks her what she wants to eat. I don't blame anyone, she said. I just feel sad. I'm still alive. I still have feelings, but I'm no longer part of anyone's plans. The pain of being left behind doesn't kill you all at once. It kills you slowly. It starts when you talk less. Then you stop calling anyone. Then you turn off your phone's ringer. Then you withdraw from social groups. And one day you find yourself asking, if I disappeared tomorrow, would anyone even notice? Here's what you need to know. You are not invisible. You are not useless. You are simply living in a society that's forgotten how to care for its elders. And that is not your fault. You are still a father, a mother, a grandmother, a grandfather. You once loved. You sacrificed. You gave everything. You still matter even if the world forgets it. And if no one comes looking for you, then it's time to start finding yourself. We will learn how to reconnect. We will seek out those who are willing to listen. We will tell our stories to anyone with ears to hear, even if it's just one person, because you were not born to fade away in silence. You were born to live and to be loved, the wound of losing your self-worth. When you're no longer someone in the eyes of others, there's something most young people don't truly understand. Older adults aren't afraid of aging. They're afraid of becoming irrelevant, afraid of pitying looks, afraid of polite, distant smiles, afraid of being told, Dad, just rest. Let us take care of it. Afraid of becoming a burden, not because they are, but because that's how they're treated. Mr. Richard L. 76 was once a respected and stern high school principal widely recognized across the state of Georgia. For 35 years, he stood behind podiums, spoke about discipline, knowledge, and ideals. Every day he wore a suit and name badge. He helped transform the lives of hundreds of students. Now he lives with his daughter and son-in-law in a 2-story house in the suburbs. The name badge is tucked away in a wooden box. No one asks his opinion anymore. No one needs his advice. He sits at the dinner table, but no one turns to him and asks, Dad, what do you think? One evening, he tried to help his grandson with 6th grade math. His daughter responded gently but firmly. Dad let him do it his way. It's a different program now. Different now. Just 2 words, but they cut deep. Not because he was corrected, but because he was made to feel outdated. Self-worth doesn't disappear with age. It only fades when others act like it no longer matters. Ms. Diane, 69, was once a concert pianist. She performed in New York. She was invited to teach at major music academies. Now she lives alone in a small apartment in Oregon. When she applied to teach piano at the local community center, the receptionist asked, Are you sure you're still up for it? She wasn't angry, she was hurt. No one asked what she used to do. No one cared about her legacy. Only one thing mattered. What can you still do now? At a certain age, people no longer see you as a whole human being, but as a faded version of who you once were. They forget a great old tree, even when it no longer bears fruit, is still a symbol of shade. A person who once gave their all, even if no longer strong, is still a lighthouse of wisdom. Why does it hurt so much to be dismissed as an elder? Because self-worth is often the last thing we have when everything else falls away. When you no longer have the big house, the nice car, the title, or the job, you still have the memories of what you accomplished. You still have the name you built with your life. You still hold that quiet pride from standing up for something that once mattered. But when society discards that, it's like you've been erased from the game even though you're still sitting right there. Self-worth doesn't depend on what you do now. It lives in how you've lived and what you still have left to give. Remember this, you don't need to make money, write books, or teach classes to be respected. You already are a treasure if only someone takes the time to open the lid. And if no one else does that, be the first person to say to yourself each morning, I still matter. I am me, not less, just older. Dignity doesn't have to shout. It lives in the straightness of your back, in the calm of your voice, and in the eyes that know. You once were and still are important to yourself and to anyone who chooses to see you clearly. The wound of self-blame. For forgetting yourself for decades. There's a kind of pain no one causes. It comes from within. No one told you you were wrong. No one hurt you. You just quietly look back at your life and wonder, what if I had lived differently? What if I hadn't neglected myself for all those years? What if I had dared to say I deserve to be loved too? Mrs. Maria T. 84 lives in New Jersey. She used to be a middle school literature teacher, strict but deeply loved by her students. Her husband passed away young, leaving her with 3 small children. She raised them alone, teaching by day, cleaning houses on weekends to earn extra income. She gave up everything. No complaints, no vacations, not a single evening just for herself. Everyone called her the Great Mother. But one rainy night, when asked if you could live your life again, would you do it the same way? She sat in silence, then whispered, I don't know, sometimes I just wish someone had asked me what I needed. Sometimes I wish I had asked myself that. No one forced her to sacrifice. No one told her to live in hardship. It was her, out of love, out of fear, out of habit, who slowly drifted away from herself. Have you ever done that, skipped your favorite meal so someone else could enjoy theirs? Stopped dressing up because you thought aging meant it no longer mattered. Buried your dreams thinking they were too far-fetched at your age. Forgot your own birthday yet. Never missed anyone else's in the family. One day you wake up and look in the mirror and see a stranger. Not because of the wrinkles, but because it's been so long since you've seen your true self. Self-blame is the quietest kind of wound. It doesn't need anyone to hurt you. It arrives in the stillness of night when you close your eyes and the memories rush in. All the chances you didn't take. All the times you stayed silent when you should have spoken. All the "it's okay" you whispered when your heart was breaking. But let me tell you something from the deepest part of my heart. You did the best you could with what you had. You don't need to apologize for your sacrifices, but you also don't need to keep punishing yourself. The most beautiful gift of growing older is that you finally have permission to forgive yourself. No one can turn back time, but you can sit with yourself today and say, I understand, I forgive, and I begin again today. You can still eat that dish you used to love. Wear that dress you never dared to wear. Write the chapter you never thought you could. Take a dance class. Say I want to without needing anyone's permission. Blaming yourself doesn't make you more humble. It just makes you forget that you deserve a full, joyful life, even if you're living the final chapters. I once lived for others. Now I choose to live for myself, not as repayment, but as respect. The wound of loss when they leave and you remain. Nothing makes old age lonelier, sadder than empty chairs. The chair where your husband once sat reading the paper every morning. The seat at the dinner table where your daughter used to share school stories. The armchair in the living room where your old friend came every Saturday for tea. Each empty chair becomes an invisible tear in the soul. Mr. James C. 81 lives in the countryside of Nebraska. He spent his whole life farming. He once had 4 best friends. They studied together, fought in the war together, survived together. Now he's the only one left. I'm not afraid of dying, he says. I'm afraid of being the last one alive, the only one left to remember it all. Loss is an inevitable part of life, especially once you're past 60, 70, or 80. You witness your loved ones leave one by one. You notice the calls become fewer, the invitations stop coming. You're left with a space no one else can fill. I once interviewed a woman named Rosie, 88 years old, in a nursing home in Wisconsin. She lost her husband 2 decades ago. Her son lives in Canada. She sees her grandchild only in Facebook photos. Every day she walks 3 laps around the garden, alone. "I'm not sad they don't come," she whispered. "I'm sad that I'm still here and I have to learn how to live without them." This is a truth no one says out loud. Old age isn't scary because of illness. Old age is scary because everything familiar slowly disappears. Your best friend dies. Your old neighborhood is demolished. The corner store closes down, and the world seems to whisper, "Thanks for coming. You can step aside now." That feeling silently pulls many older adults into depression, though they may not recognize it. They stop enjoying food, they don't sleep well, they lose motivation. They don't need pills, they need healing. Not from doctors, but from the broken connections they've lost. That's why healing in old age doesn't begin with get out more or think positive. It begins with acknowledging the loss, that you lost someone who mattered deeply, that grief is real, and that you have the right to grieve. You don't have to move on. You only need to learn how to live forward with the memory, not against it. Write the things you never got to say. Share your stories with a new friend or just with yourself. Cry. Be still. Touch the old shirt. Breathe in the familiar scent to remind your body love still exists even when the person is gone. Senior loneliness is real, but it is not a life sentence. It's a quiet invitation. It's time to become your own source of warmth. If no one is left to light the fire, then learn to keep it burning from within. And when you're ready, step outside again. Not to fill the empty space, but to reclaim your place in a changing world. Maybe it's a shared meal with a stranger, a local art group, a painting class, a dance evening, a town square filled with laughter. That's how you tell life. I'm still here. I've lost many people, but I haven't lost myself. Loss is not the end. It's the beginning of a new chapter where you learn to find yourself again after 60. Not to live like before, but to live more deeply, more truthfully. The wound of betrayed trust, when the ones closest to you leave you unable to trust again. Trust is not something we give away lightly. But as we grow older, it often feels like we have no choice. We have to rely on others, and that's exactly when we become most vulnerable. Mr. Bernard R., 78, lives in Arizona. He was a lifelong government worker, careful, principled, and proud to say he never owed anyone a dime. He owned a 2-story house passed down from his parents. His wife passed away young, and he raised his only son with devotion and generosity. Then came the minor stroke. He couldn't walk for 3 months. His son came home, helped him sign some papers to make it easier to manage things and take care of you. 2 months later, he received a letter from the bank. The house had been mortgaged. He was no longer the legal owner. When asked how he felt, he didn't show anger. He just said quietly, "I'm not mad at him, I'm mad at myself for trusting." That is one of the most silent wounds of old age, the wound of broken trust. Not because a stranger deceived you, but because someone you held as a baby, raised with love, believed in without question, became the one who broke you. Trust issues in old age aren't just about money. They come from the broken pieces of everyday conversations. "Dad's always telling old stories, so boring." "Mom, stop calling so much, I'm busy." "Mom, you're old now, let us handle it." "Why are you always bothering us, Dad? Just relax." Each of those comments becomes a tiny cut, not deep enough to bleed, but sharp enough to close the heart little by little. Ms. Teresa, 73, once lived with her daughter's family. She cooked, she cleaned, she looked after her grandkids, until one day her son-in-law said, "Mom, maybe it's time you moved back to your own place. We need more space." She said nothing. She nodded. And from that day on, she stopped wanting to live with anyone, stopped trusting anyone, stopped opening her heart to anyone. Elder betrayal isn't just theft or abandonment. It's that quiet, unbearable feeling of becoming a burden in the eyes of those you love the most. And once that feeling creeps in, seniors often build a wall so thick no one can see it and no one can touch it. So how do we heal this kind of wound? First, acknowledge one truth: you are allowed to feel hurt when your trust is broken. You don't have to hide your pain. You don't have to pretend to be strong. You don't have to understand their side. You just need to be honest with yourself. I trusted. I was hurt, but I won't let that hurt consume me. Emotional pain in seniors is different from that in the young. Older adults don't lash out. They don't say much. They go silent. And in that silence, the wound can grow deeper than any insult ever could. If you're living with the feeling that you have no one left to trust, try this. Start by trusting yourself. Trust that you didn't deserve to be treated that way. Trust that there are still kind, honest people out there, even if they're not family. Trust that trust itself is not the enemy, it's just something that needs to be given more wisely. How do you heal from family betrayal after 60? Not by forgetting, but by acknowledging the pain. Forgiving not because they deserve it, but because you deserve to be free from bitterness. Finding a new community where you're heard, maybe a seniors group, an art class, a small support circle. You are not alone. You are not foolish for trusting. You are someone with a heart, and that makes you stronger than most. I once hurt because I placed my trust in the wrong hands. But today I choose to believe in something else. That I still hold my worth even if others can't see it, the wound of no longer being heard. When you speak but no one really listens anymore. There was a time when just a cough would have the whole family turning to ask Mom, "Are you okay?" When a single furrow of your brow could signal something was wrong, and your husband, your children, your neighbors would all notice. But now it's different. You can speak for minutes and no one responds. You offer ideas and no one listens. You share a story you've cherished your entire life and no one even remembers what you just said. That's not losing your voice. It's losing your right to be heard. Senior silence. That's what sociologists have called this phenomenon, where older adults slowly fade out of conversations. Not because they stop speaking, but because they're no longer seen as people with something worth hearing. Mr. Walter, 75, was once a seasoned lawyer in California, a man full of stories, courtroom experience, and wisdom. But at a family dinner, when he offered advice about financial planning, his grandson replied, "That's how you guys did it back then. People invest differently now." Walter stopped talking, not because he was wrong, but because he knew they had stopped listening. At a certain age, you're no longer invited to speak. Your opinion is no longer sought. They'll offer you the best seat at the table, but not the space to speak your mind. And so, you begin to fall silent, not because you have nothing left to say, but because your words now echo into emptiness. Ms. Linda, 72, lives with her daughter and 2 young grandchildren. She longed to tell them about wartime letters, about collecting stamps, about the books she once dreamed of writing, but the kids were glued to their screens. One day she softly said, "I once dreamed of becoming a writer, you know." Her granddaughter looked up for 2 seconds, then back down. "Oh, okay." Linda never brought it up again. Emotional isolation in aging doesn't begin when no one's around. It begins when people are physically present but mentally and emotionally absent. They nod, they say uh-huh, but they're not really listening. They smile politely, but there's no connection. And so the hearts of seniors grow lonelier even in a house full of family. Does that sound familiar? Have you ever sat at a holiday gathering surrounded by laughter and people you love and still felt like a shadow? Have you ever said something, heard no response, and forced a smile pretending it didn't hurt? While your chest tightened? Don't blame yourself. There is nothing wrong with wanting to be heard. Seniors don't need praise. They just need to feel I am still a valuable part of this conversation. My stories still matter. Healing emotional wounds for seniors doesn't begin by speaking louder. It begins by finding the right space where people truly want to listen. A fellow senior, a meditation group, a radio show, a class, a hobby group, a stranger who simply says, "I want to hear your story." That's enough. If no one is listening now, record your voice. Write down what you've never said. Start a journal. Send a handwritten letter to an old friend. You don't need anyone's approval to have a voice. Your voice already exists. All it takes is one deep breath, one gentle decision. I still have something to say, and I don't need permission to hear myself. The wound of self-isolation, when you slowly step away from the world. No one withdraws from life in a single night. We step away gradually, quietly, without fanfare. Not because someone hurt us, but because we're tired. Tired of speaking our truth and not being understood. Tired of trying to fit in. Tired of being the one who always makes the call, starts the conversation, opens the heart, only to be met with silence, indifference, or busyness. Self-isolation isn't weakness. It's the final armor many seniors wear when they feel the world has moved on without them. And like most emotional wounds in aging, it arrives silently. Mrs. Elaine, 86, was once vibrant and full of life. She worked as a librarian in Boston for 40 years. In her younger days, she could strike up a conversation with anyone from college students to strangers on the street. But after retirement, after her husband passed, after her friends slowly left this world, she began to go out less. First, she declined birthday parties. Then she skipped school reunions. Eventually, she stopped visiting the library just 3 blocks from her home. And one day, she stopped answering the phone altogether. Senior withdrawal doesn't begin with a big decision. It begins with a tiny whisper in the mind. It's okay, doesn't matter if I go or not. And from there, you begin to quietly cut the strings, one connection at a time, so gently that no one notices. Until one day you look up and realize you've drifted too far from everyone else. Self-isolation isn't rebellion. It's a quiet surrender. You stop expecting anyone to show up. You stop hoping to be understood. You stop explaining yourself because what's the point? And so, you lock yourself away in a small, neat, safe world, quiet as a drawer that no one opens anymore. I once asked an elderly man, "Why don't you call your kids or grandkids? It might be nice to chat." He smiled. "They're busy." I say a sentence or two, then I stop. Don't want to bother them. But I knew he didn't stop because he didn't need connection. He stopped because he got used to the feeling of no one needing him. Why do the elderly isolate themselves? Because it hurts less than hoping. Because the deepest pain isn't being rejected, it's being overlooked as if you were never really there. And after enough of that, you begin to shrink away, not because someone pushed you, but because no one pulled you back. But dear one, no one is born to live that way. We are creatures of connection, not for dependency, but for light, to reflect one another, to carry one another. Even at 60, 70, 90, you still need others, and others still need you. They may not know it yet, but this world is truly missing something without you. Healing loneliness after 70 doesn't mean throwing parties. You don't need 50 new friends. All it takes is one small action each day, a single step back toward life. Open your window each morning. Write a letter to an old friend. Sign up for a painting class or gardening or a meditation circle. Start a book club. Or simpler still, say hello to a neighbor you've passed by for years without speaking. How to reconnect in old age? It begins with a glance, a question, a cup of tea, a heartbeat that says, "I'm still open." Because sometimes all it takes is one person discovering, "I had no idea how much this elder still has to offer." And when one person sees it, a second will, then a third, and one day you'll realize you were never truly alone. You were just waiting for the right moment to come back. How to rise from within yourself when you've carried 7 wounds across a lifetime. You don't need anyone to promise that things will return to how they were. Because the truth is, they won't. The ones who've passed won't come back. Youth won't return. The cracks in broken relationships won't magically mend overnight. but that doesn't mean healing is impossible. Healing in old age isn't about turning back time. It's about journeying inward, staring straight into each wound you've hidden for years and saying, I see you now, and from this moment forward we walk together without blame, without denial. How seniors heal emotionally doesn't begin with others. It begins within, with a voice inside you that's been forgotten, the voice that was drowned out by children, neighbors, co-workers, and society. The voice that once whispered, I have feelings too. I mattered once. I still want to live a meaningful life. This journey needs no map, only the courage to say I'm in pain and I still deserve a life that isn't steeped in sorrow. You can begin with stillness. Each morning, instead of turning on the TV or reaching for your phone, just sit with your breath for 5 minutes. Not in some complicated meditation, just to remember you are alive. And this breath is yours, no one can take that from you. Then you can begin to rewrite your story. You don't have to be a writer, just write for yourself. Write what you forgot. The time you loved someone deeply. The time you stood up for something you believed in. The time you failed but kept going. The time you cried and no one saw. Each story is a thread of healing, a reminder that you have lived fully, and you still can. You can heal through small actions. Plant a flower. Play your old instrument. Walk in the sun. Try a new recipe. Call an old friend. Every small act is your way of saying to your body and soul, I still care about myself. And if you've ever thought it's too late to begin again, please remember. Even the oldest bamboo still shoots new leaves. The sun still rises each morning. It does not care if you're young or old. The healing process after 60 isn't fast, but it's deep, it's real, it's more solid than any surface change. Because when you heal from within, the world can no longer break you the way it once did. Forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Cry, not because you're weak, but because your soul needs cleansing for all the things you never got to say. And above all, believe. Believe that after everything, peace doesn't mean the pain disappears. It means the pain no longer has the power to control you. Peace is a choice, no matter what age you are. If you've stayed with me until these final moments, please pause for a while. Not to think, not to analyze, but simply to sit with yourself as if you're sitting beside an old friend you haven't seen in years, and that friend, too, is you. You have lived long enough to reach this day. You've endured loss, betrayal, silence, sorrow, helplessness, sacrifice. You don't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. But you still have one important thing left to do. Live the rest of your life as if it were a gift. Inner peace in aging doesn't come from how much money you have, how many grandchildren love you, or how healthy you are. It comes from looking back at your life and nodding to all of it. Even the parts you once wished to forget, even the sorrows folded away long ago. You nod not to close the chapter, but to begin again with a wiser, softer heart, one that no longer needs to carry everything alone. You don't have to go anywhere far. Just sit down, place your hand on your chest, feel your heart still beating, maybe slower, maybe softer, but still beating. A sign that you are alive and there is still time to choose peace. Emotional recovery for the elderly doesn't need a miracle. You don't need someone to save you. You just need to take yourself back with all your scars, all your lessons, and all the beautiful things that time has never taken from you. If you've ever thought there's nothing special left in me, please remember there are thousands like you searching for one reason to believe that growing old still holds meaning. And if you choose peace today, you don't just heal yourself, you become a light for someone else. Live the rest of your days as if each one is a return to yourself. Don't wait until you can no longer speak to hope someone will hear you. Write, speak, hug someone, forgive yourself. Clean out that old room just to sit and drink tea with someone new. Let the light in. Let love find its way back. And if you need someone to walk with you on that path, we're here. The life after 60 exists for one reason only: to hold your hand and to remind you you've never truly been left behind. Click follow on this channel if your heart feels touched. Not because we need you, but because you deserve kindness spoken to you every single day. You are not alone. You are not outdated. You are simply beginning a new chapter, one where stillness is power and slowness is a sacred way to live. From today on, stop living like you're waiting for time to run out. Live as if this is the most beautiful, the deepest, the freest season of your life. Because it truly is. Only when we stop chasing others, stop trying to prove ourselves, do we finally begin to live. Wishing you a peaceful afternoon. And if you can share this video with an elder you know, just so they'll know. Someone is listening, someone understands, someone is walking with them.